Hey everybody, welcome to Coshun Cast. It is January 7th. Happy birthday to my son, John. Before we get going, I'm Craig Coshun, along with producer extraordinaire, James Stewart Jr. My man, how are you?
Doing good. It's actually update. The kids Jay was to school on time. But what I did notice is that my phone said it feels like -19.
Yeah.
So that was awful. But other than my inability to be outside for more than 10 seconds, it was good. It's been a good day.
Well, it's I call this the day that the dogs suffer because I am not taking them on a walk today.
Right.
The backyard is your haven to do whatever you want to do for the few moments you can actually take it. But I guarantee you they'll be at the back door faster than me.
Oh, yeah. How was the birthday celebration, festivities?
It was good. John, my oldest, was turned 23. So, I'm putting myself in the old man category right there in case anybody was wondering. But we did the virtual golf, if you will. I don't know what else to call it. I think it's called X Golf or something like that. It's a franchise chain, but there's some in all over the state. And so we did that Thursday afternoon. You can get a pitcher of beer or two along the way. And if you haven't been to one, it's almost like going, honestly, to a bowling alley.
Yeah.
Walk in and they've got these almost like little theaters you just walk into, and then in front of that is like a bar counter and stools and whatnot. You can get drinks, order food, and have parties in there, or get serious if you want to. But we've never done that before, and I mistakenly chose Pebble Beach. We got stuck in the trees and behind homes, like on the first shot. So we thought we were there for 3.5 hours and thought, the guy's like, oh yeah, you can do 18 in 3.5 hours. You could probably do it in 2.5. We were there for 3.5 hours and got through 9. So unfortunately, you can take as many mulligans as you want. So, but that doesn't mean it's going to speed up the game. But
I wonder what the pitchers of beer had to do with that.
Oh, probably none, actually. We were bad from the get-go, but no, it was fun. It was for a gathering on a cold January day to have a little get together in this state. I mean, to tell you, it was like going to a haven, man. It was pretty cool. So that's what we did yesterday, ahead of his, because it's his birthday today, so he's got plans that don't include us. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday to him.
Yeah.
It should be fun. 23 was fun. 23 was a fun year.
Yeah, I don't remember that. That was too long ago. It's probably easier for you. So now, what'd you have for breakfast today? You got any, like, your food sharing has gone down?
It's a new year. I'm working on it. I just had eggs for breakfast. I'm good. Some eggs and some water, and I'm good to go. As soon as we're done with here, I'm going to eat, though, because the eggs was not enough. But trying to convince myself of that.
Boring, just so you know. You're a boring co-host. Started out with a bang, man, with chips and soda.
Sorry, I'll go get some chips and donuts after this.
Yeah. So it's Friday work week, so we're at the tail end. We had a lot to discuss on Monday, but as we know, James, with the Bucks and stuff, a lot of things change. What you got on your agenda for today?
I think we got to start with the last game. Obviously, dropped 2 in a row. It was kind of a tough game to watch because they came out so hot. I know you and Steve talked about it on the broadcast, but very rarely do you have a 42-point quarter and an 11-point quarter. And if the 11-point quarter comes second, you're probably going to lose. And that's obviously what happened. But to me, you just kind of keep moving because the entire league is dealing with COVID, obviously. So, and we just saw Drew Holiday added to that list. So, a lot going on. But what are your kind of takeaways from that Raptors game?
Well, I think, a couple of things off the top, just getting preparation for the game. When you get closer to game time and all of a sudden you find out Coach Bud's not going to be there because he's on the health and safety protocol. Giannis isn't going to play. He's on the non-COVID, but an illness-related issue for him.
Yeah.
So you don't have your floor leader and you don't have your off-court floor leader. That's the first time we've experienced that. And then you're missing a couple of key players. Pat Connaughton and Grayson Allen were also on the health and safety protocol list as well. So all of a sudden, you're two of your best shooters, and you haven't even started the game yet. So I think, though, the biggest thing about, you kind of mentioned it too, you just never know, in the NBA what you're gonna run into. I mean, this is the thing when you're playing 82 games a year versus 17 games a year like in the NFL. And baseball, who knows what's going to happen once they start up and stuff, if we're going to, still be in this protocol or whatever. But doesn't matter because it's all about what's happening right now. And I thought, that the guys stepped up in the first half. I mean, they scored 77 points. They had more 3-pointers made in the first half than they did the previous game. And I'm thinking, well, with Drew and Middleton out there, they're gonna. I think to get through 48 minutes against Toronto's a pretty good team, and they really weren't missing any key parts. So I think to get through 48 minutes, that's the hardest thing to do right now in the league. You can play shorthanded, but can you play that 48th minute shorthanded against a fully loaded team? And it came down to the final minutes on Wednesday. And I think it's hard to expect to win those games, even though in your mind we're playing the game and you never know what's going to happen if you don't. But I think when you get to that 47th, 48th minute and you're shorthanded against these really good teams, it's tough to pull those games out.
Yeah, and they made a little push at the end. It was too late, which you got to kind of appreciate the not giving in and whatnot. We have a comment, and it's from my wife, and she's calling me on my breakfast. And she is correct. I actually did have a breakfast this morning. I forgot about that. So there's that. I got to remember that we're going out to people, and I can be fact checked. So apparently,
hey, look, I've got one thing to say about this whole thing. Now, if it wasn't your wife's name that you saw, you would have finished your thought.
Yeah.
And you would have let me finish my thought, and it's somewhere down the line in the show would have gone, oh, we have a comment from a viewer and listener here, and actually had this to say. But like you did, like breaking news from the wife, because you saw Marissa's name. I love that.
I feel like, well, she's upstairs, so I feel like if I didn't bring it up, she'd just come down and tell you anyway. So
either she just heard you or she's actually our only viewer right now.
Right, exactly. One of the two. She's in the live audience back there.
Is that a soundproof curtain, by the way?
It is not. It is not. She can hear everything.
That is awesome.
But
so
anyway,
you got busted, man. You got busted live on the cast.
I feel like that's life in my household, though. It's she's listening, she's waiting.
That is awesome.
For a lot of opportunities.
That's what I'm talking about, man. You can't think you're going into something because at the 11th hour she's going to bust you on that. Just as tough it is to win a game in the 48th minute, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
Kind of back to Bucks. How we learned basically as we were getting off the air that the Bucks were moving on from Boogie Cousins. How kind of surprised were you with that move?
I was surprised. I mean, it's when you think about it, you understand, why they did it. And I had, understood some of their concerns, I think, maybe in the week building up to this week about, is he going to be somebody that's going to be a championship player push? The guy that's going to push you to where you need to go. And I'm not sure that's the guy. He wasn't, shooting great from three. And I think his defense has clearly become a liability of sorts. And, I think it's easy for us to look at this and look at all those things that I just mentioned. And then what time of year are we playing? You can let those things go, or you can say, maybe he'll get better, or, maybe somebody else will pick him up, as far as the team goes, pick up some of those liabilities as the season goes. But I don't think he was signed originally to be a piece to the puzzle. I think it was a test run. They gave him an audition for the rest of the league. I mean, at this point, by the end of the weekend, if not sooner, he'll be on another team. There's no doubt. He's healthy, playing to his ability and stuff. But
had a couple 20-point games.
Yeah. But don't you agree? I think the thing that probably opens up your eyes the most is he was such a good fit. Period. I mean, whether he was a good player or not, he was a really good fit, and he was saying all the right things. He's not a troublemaker. Team embraced him. He had some really, really good moments, I think, when he got minutes on the floor. And he's an instant fan favorite. There's just something about him. The guy's nickname is Boogie. He's an instant fan favorite. And I think, milling through the arena after the game and leaving, with some fans and workers at Pfizer, a lot of people were kind of pissed off. They were shocked. They're like, what are you doing? But I get some of the things that I mentioned on why, they still want to keep a roster spot open that's going to be financially impactful. And it's not like he's signed for free. So, they're kind of treading a line right now on luxury tax and that type of thing. So, I get it. I was surprised.
Yeah. I think the hard part too is like Boogie has been kind of one of those guys that has been that the fans have kind of wanted for a while, because he's been floating around for, last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But it looked outward looking in. It looked like they were all having fun and, like you said, fit in well. And, the team embraced them. And clearly, like, unless Brooke is coming back tomorrow, they still need help in the post, especially with whatever Giannis is dealing with. Hopefully he's back, but so they're still going to need to do something about that post player. But it just, when you take a step back and you look at it all, it does makes a little bit more sense that they want to keep the flexibility, because long term, I don't know what that, what his role would be come playoffs. Because if we're under the assumption that Brooke would be back by playoff time, then I don't really see a need for Boogie on the team. But, obviously, like you said, we haven't heard anything, so we have no idea what's going on with Brooke. But I think I understand. You got to keep the flexibility open. And I think I'm going to try to approach it from that standpoint, that this is a move that allows them to be aggressive in the future. That it's always kind of confusing with all these contract rules and how they hit the calendars and all that stuff. But I'm just going to put my trust in John Horst and figure that he knows what he's talking about. And I did see a post from him, I did see he commented, I think, with Woj, saying something to the effect that, like, this doesn't stop them from working with him in the future or something like that. So who knows what happened down the line. This may just be one of those weird contractual calendar mixing dates that happens in the pros. Fans, including myself, don't really understand why, but you guys see what happens.
I think the biggest issue, I think, for a lot of us to understand, I've never dove into the to a lot of logistics and how certain wording and how certain dates and numbers like that and contracts. It's just not been my thing. I mean, I think we all understand it enough that when occasions arrive, that we can cover it and we can get the right information out of the team. And I think, I thought John Horst is pretty forthcoming. He certainly didn't. It's not like it was a surprise. I think the way I'm reading how he's leaving the door open, so you never know if Boogie will be back, next year with the Bucks or whatever, is the fact that they did enjoy having him. They did appreciate his effort. And I would be certain that the communication line would have been open with him, that this wasn't a surprise, to DeMarcus Cousins. So I think that's kind of the bottom line. But I also, I think the other immediate thing that, a lot of us thought of too is Brooke Lopez coming back.
Right.
Because his contract is guaranteed and they're paying him. And if he's healthy enough to come back, I don't think a lot of us know how back surgeries are the recovery time is going to be individual. And we don't know the extent of the surgery itself that he went through. But maybe he's coming back in March. Maybe even if he came back in April and they make a deep run, they're
Right.
playing in June, right? If they go all the way to the finals. So there's that. And I think the other thing that it opens up, possibility of packaging up a trade. We don't know how that's going to work out. Obviously in the NBA, it's got to match up fiscally for both teams or three teams, whoever's making those trades. And I think the other thing it does, James, and I'm curious what you think about this, is it leaves the possibility of signing a veteran who's on a bad team, whose team just buys him out, lets him go at a future deadline coming up, in February or March, where they could pick up a guy at a minimum and
Right.
work that way, through their contracts.
And I think that you bring up a really good point with the kind of veteran or aging star or whoever gets bought out. Obviously Blake Griffin landed in a perfect spot for him with the Nets, but that's kind of what I'm talking about with the confusion of how these contracts work, and the fact is it was a non-guaranteed contract, so that should have been kind of signal one that this could happen, and you never really know that. These buyouts seem to be happening more and more and more as these bad teams decide that they want to move forward. They seem to just want to cut bait and move forward now. So yeah, hopefully that is the case in the near future. I know there was a report that the Bucks may be signing Langston Galloway. And I think there's some confusion with that, because the obvious question is, if you cut or if you waive Boogie one day and the next day you plan to sign Langston Galloway, are we talking about you're replacing Boogie with Langston Galloway? Now with Drew going down, I guess a guard makes a little bit more sense. But I think, and maybe you know this, but I think the hardship contracts don't count toward your roster, right?
No, they're additions, and
Okay.
and
They could sign Langston Galloway and still have that spot open to do
and
whatever.
it's a 10-day contract. It's a hardship contract, and I'm sure there's a cap on how many guys that you can sign, but it's strictly so you can play and have proper depth. I think at certain positions, and I think if anybody watched that game on Wednesday, with George Hill also out of that game, by the way, I forgot to mention that earlier. The Bucks were really thin at point guard, because let's face it, Giannis handles the ball as much as a point guard, but Drew is the only true point guard and ball handler. God bless Chris Middleton, but the more the ball's not in his hand as a point guard, the better off the team is. I think he would when we had that conversation together. But Drew played right out of the gates. He played the entire first quarter, and I'm looking at that going, this can't continue,
Right.
But there was no true backup that way. As far as I think where the team wanted to go and how they started out and stuff. So yeah, it's just hardship look, even Luke Cornett, who they signed earlier this week.
Right.
You know, big 7'2" center, doesn't have a lot of experience. People are like, oh, they're gonna sign Luke Cornett and he's gonna be the next DeMarcus Cousins. I don't think that's, you know, the huge intent there. But they do need some help, obviously, you know, in that 5 position right now. He hasn't seen the court yet. Maybe he will this weekend. You know,
Yeah.
Bucks. I mean, you've got to get him out there at some point. So.
Well, and like with all the kind of with COVID kind of running through the league right now, there's been so many of these, you know, 10-day contracts. You know, we've seen Greg Monroe back in the league. We've seen Brandon Knight back in the league, just for former Bucks. So I think this is going to be. There's just going to be a period of this NBA where you're just going to see a lot of names you either don't know or didn't expect to see or whatever, because the league's trying to continue to move forward, you know, and who knows? We even saw, did you see Jason Kidd? I'm assumingly jokingly offered Dirk a 10-day to come back. they retired Dirk's
number. That was
number.
a joke, do you?
Yeah, they retired Dirk's number, and he's like, "Yeah, we're handing out 10 days. You want one?" So I think the whole league kind of knows.
I mean, but you think about this. How long has Dirk been out? 1 year? 2 years? I mean, he could step right in, believe me, and be productive. You know that as well.
I'm sure the fadeaway is still good. The one-legged fadeaway, I don't think he's ever going to miss that.
Just judging by some of his comments, you know, during the honoring of him in Dallas, I think he's ready to go just in case.
Yeah.
But hey, man, the guy you and I work with, I think, is ready to go too.
Oh yeah,
Novak's putting up threes when he's coaching those fifth graders.
If you drove by his house right now, he's out there shooting in the cold. Doesn't matter. He's got to get him up. Got to be ready.
Oh no, he's got the indoor gym working. We know that. Yeah. So it's going to be. I think we're just in a, you know, continue to be in this phase where. You know, we're going to be, you don't know until the game starts sometimes who's playing or who's not, who's coaching or who's not. You know, we haven't heard official word today whether, you know, Bud's going to be back coaching Brooklyn or not, or if it's going to be Darvin Ham. That's where the Bucks are playing tonight. It's a return to the Eastern Conference semifinal. Last we saw Game 7 OT, you know, all the stuff with KD and foot on the line and whatnot, and regulation at the buzzer, and Bucks going on to win that game. One of the most exciting games we've seen. So now they're back, and you know the funny thing about it is you talk about COVID and players and who's playing and who's not. There was such hype this week about Kyrie Irving coming back and making his season debut with the Nets on Wednesday night. It had to happen on the road because he can't play a home game. There's restrictions if you're not vaccinated in New York. And so, but he can't play tonight. So all that hype in the Nets this week and where they're going.
Yeah, he had a good game.
He had a good game, but I mean, now tonight he's not playing.
And I wonder too, like, I assume they made this move because of kind of all the COVID issues and the 10-day contracts and blah, blah, blah. But it's not a move that I think you can undo. Like, once everyone kind of recovers from COVID and comes back, I don't see them saying, all right, Kyrie, thanks, go home now. You know what I mean? Like, he's here. Yeah. And the problem with that is, we were talking about it earlier, he can't play tonight, so he can only play outside of New York. But if they make it to the finals and Golden State makes it to the finals, then he can't play.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't know this for sure or not, but some of these states don't have restrictions on if you're visiting.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not 100% sure on that, but I did hear that the other day that maybe he could play there. That's a, you know, because there's not too many spots that have those type of restrictions. But you know, but here it doesn't make any sense to me though why you'd allow a visitor that's not vaccinated to come into your thing if you have rules against people who are there. Like I'll give you, for instance, I've watched a couple of Badger men's basketball games this week. Well, they had a home game yesterday, so specifically home. And Greg Gard, their head coach, is wearing a mask the whole time. Their bench is mostly masked up. And then you look at the visitors. Iowa, their head coach was out there. He didn't wear a mask the whole night. Their players on the bench didn't have them on. And I'm thinking to myself, isn't this strange that, you allow the visitors to come in and they can make up their own rules on your visitor bench, but you as the home team, like if I'm the head coach, there's no way I'm wearing a mask.
Right.
I mean, if you don't absolutely 100% have to, you want the best communication you could possibly have with your team. Now the Badgers are playing well. They've figured it out, but it just seems strange to me, this whole home visitor thing. What are the rules of wearing a mask while you're playing or not? Some players have to wear masks if they were, contact tracing or did have a positive test like 5 days after they test negative again. It's all kinds of stuff, and it does become a little bit confusing. We all know that by now, but
the problem with that too
is interesting to see if he can play or not.
Yeah. And just like kind of what you were saying, there's so much going on. There's so many different rules that, like, as a viewer, sometimes you tune in and you just have no idea what the rules are anymore, and you're just trying to figure it out. But
yeah,
at this point, it kind of is what it is.
And it's hard for us to sit here and try to preview this game because we don't know if Giannis is playing. We don't know if Coach Bud is coaching. We know Drew's been put on the COVID list, but does that mean he's out for tonight for sure? George Hill coming back, all that.
It feels like Jordan was on the COVID list a few games ago, but it wasn't 10 days. So I feel like I have no idea what's going on anymore. I'm just showing up every day waiting to see who's going to play.
Well, I think to clear up a little confusion there, I think if you're contact traced, I think you have like a 24-hour window or something like that, especially if you test negative.
Well, but the problem is they don't tell us that, you know what I mean? So as a fan, you're just kind of, you see a guy hit it one day and then he's off 2 days later, and it's just like.
So this is what we do. We're very smart broadcasters. We deduct.
Yeah.
So we see War played on Saturday, had a big game, and then Monday he was on the list who couldn't play, and then Wednesday he returned and started and had a good game. So, hey man, if it's every other game, he must not have it. I don't know.
Right, exactly.
All right, what do you do now? Here's the problem. No matter who you're talking to, it's hard not to talk about this.
Exactly. We could literally go on for another 20 minutes. But the other kind of interesting Wisconsin news is the whole Aaron Rodgers, Hub Arkish thing. We obviously saw Aaron finally respond, refers to him as a bum. I think just
I love that. I love that word bum.
Yeah, it's so dismissive. You know what I mean? It's just, and that obviously was Aaron's point. But the interesting thing for me is, aside from this whole Aaron and Hub Arkish stuff, I think what it's going to do is bring up, like if Aaron loses, let's say, he doesn't win the MVP, I think it's going to immediately bring up, okay, who else felt like this? Are we voting against, like what is the criteria now? Because it's all been so loosely defined, and probably for good reason. But there's definitely going to be when this is all done, people are going to want to know who voted and who voted for what reason and this and that, because this has now brought this kind of to the front of everyone's attention, and it obviously has backfired on Hub Arkish because he came out and apologized and this and that, and it's pretty much everywhere that people are talking about his stance, whether it's relevant or not, that you think he's a bad guy. Or do you think he's a jerk? Clearly, his numbers say that he should at least be definitely considered for the MVP. And I wonder where it goes from here, because that's what I'm seeing a lot is people now questioning the entire process of if these guys are, you know, a band of local writers, they all have their own kind of agendas. And this one publicly seems like I just don't like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. There's absolutely no question about that. And I think, you know, say what you want, and it's basically, it comes down to your own opinion, everybody's own opinion on how they want to view Aaron Rodgers and you know, what transpired earlier this season. We all know what that is. He said he was immunized. Everybody in the room took that for he's vaccinated, because if you look it up, it's basically two words that mean the same thing.
Right.
The process, and he didn't stick a needle in his arm and take one of the vaccinations. He allegedly did his own thing, and then he was called a liar after that for the rest of the way, and that's been how it is right up till now. Yeah. And he's only mildly apologized, but I think, in my opinion, and I'm not being biased on this, I think that I'd take Rodgers' apology right now with a little more true meaning to it than what Hub has done. I mean, Hub, I'm taking this out of one of the SI articles over the last 24 hours, said he penned an apology for some of the childish things that he said about Aaron Rodgers, and this is from Hub. He said he made a mistake. However, he said the error didn't have to do with the comments about Rodgers themselves, but rather that he failed to respect the cardinal rule of voting, not disclosing your plans prior to it being announced, which is, you know, it's kind of a sacred rule, I think, for people who have, I mean, you never used to hear who you're voting for the Baseball Hall of Fame. I mean, votes like that just, I think, more recently became public, but it was after you voted. It's not, this is my intent going in, and I think that's been the problem with the Harb Arkish thing. The thing that I don't understand about, you know, the apology is at the end of this, he says to Aaron Rodgers, "You are one of the greatest players of this generation and one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Whether or not you are this year's MVP is up to the 50-member panel, neither me nor my critics." Well, you're a member of the 50-member panel. So, you know, what's that supposed to mean? So, I mean, this has been a very loose-ended apology, and hey, I don't care whether this guy apologizes or not. I don't care what he thinks about anything. I just think it's pretty amazing to me that he had to say what he did in such a way. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me that he made it personal, and this isn't, your vote isn't personal. It's for performance, period.
Yeah. And the thing too, like, as a reporter who generally needs to have good relationships with players, I feel like the response from most of the former players that I've seen has been basically, what he's doing is affecting Aaron Rodgers' legacy for a personal vendetta. And anytime legacy comes into play, or you're affecting a player's long-term legacy, like, all of the players are going to back you, or back Aaron Rodgers on that aspect, because they understand kind of what that this would be his fourth MVP, right?
Yeah.
Adding a fourth MVP is a big deal. You know what I mean? It's not like offensive player of the year or anything like that. Like, the MVP, we know what the MVP award means, and it's the main award that kind of we focus on. And that's kind of the thing that I feel like he fails to realize, is that when he said that out, kind of put that out there, it was just like, do you not understand what you're actually conveying? There's only 50 people allowed to vote on this thing, and one of them is openly taking a personal vendetta out against the front runner. Like that, it just. Yeah,
and I mean, let's face it. Again, this is for everyone has their own interpretation of this. Whatever interpretation Aaron Rodgers had, He didn't commit a crime.
Right.
He didn't throw anybody under the bus. He didn't lie about anybody else. He didn't. Some people have an opinion he didn't lie at all. He was asked a question, and he wasn't asked to go in depth. So that's not his fault. And I'm not here to defend anybody. I'm just saying this is how I interpret this.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, there are guys that have done far worse, and they're not persecuted for this either. So I just felt the whole. I mean, look, I've been covering pro sports specifically for over 20 years. I don't have a vote for anybody. Right. I would love to have a vote for Hall of Fame or Cy Young or NBA MVP. I would love to have a vote. I would take that seriously and be tremendously honored. But there's only 50 people who get to vote for the AP MVP, and he's one of them. And I was just shocked that it.
Well, that's the thing too. Like when you think about how like all this voting stuff, like the one that came to mind to me was like Terrell Owens not being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like clearly that was all off the field stuff, because there's no doubt to me that he should have been first ballot, and that, like, I think we're going to start asking. People are going to start asking, like, we want more transparency in these votings, because to know that some people are voting on off the field stuff, some people aren't, and to have that affect the way that the outcome, it's kind of crazy to think that this hasn't come up yet. I guess it just took someone to say it out loud.
Well, and to say it the way I think he said it too. I think, though, you bring up a good point. I mean, let's face it, there are a lot of really, really good Major League Baseball players that clearly haven't been voted into the Hall of Fame because of their tainted past. Is there a rule against that tainted past to not be in the Hall of Fame? No. I mean, that's why you have all these voters who get to have their say, and that's just part of the voting process. And I understand that. But I don't think a lot of these guys, let's just say Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens, for example, their first time on the ballot, everybody would think probably by their numbers, they would be first ballot Hall of Famers, and they're going to be maybe on the outside looking in for the rest of their careers at this point. Who knows? But, a lot of the opinions that some of these voters who do have the right to put them in or not put them in, weren't shared way ahead of time, or weren't given silly opinions of what they think of these guys, off the field. Sometimes they do, but this one seemed to be a rarity, because we're talking about guys who were accused of cheating to stay athletically enhanced. And Rogers hadn't been accused of anything. I mean,
other than being a jerk.
He's in being accused of lying. He's been named a liar by a lot of people because they think he didn't tell the whole truth on a question that was asked. But I mean, this is almost silly, to be honest with you.
I agree, it is silly, and that's why I think, though, there's a little bit of an insight to see that, like, because I don't know any of the people who vote for MVP, so it's kind of this nameless bunch. But for one of them to come out and do this, I think that opens the door to say, okay, who are the rest of these guys, and what is going on? Who do they dislike? Who do they like? Whatever. It just opens the door to so much kind of nonsense.
Yep, it does. And here's the other thing I was thinking of today. What if he doesn't get MVP? I mean, right now, according to a lot of the experts, he's the front runner. What if all of a sudden he doesn't? Because guess what? He's basically at the point now where you're voting for him or you're not right now, because the playoffs don't
There's only
count.
one game left. Yeah.
And there's one game left that he's hardly, if even, going to play in on Sunday against the Lions, because they don't need to win or lose that game, to determine postseason at all. They've got everything locked up. So it's like, is he the MVP right now? Looks like he's the MVP right now. Will he be voted? I think that's going to be like, people are going to be anxious to see what the other 49 guys, think. What if it was 49-1?
Right.
Show me the money.
If it's 49-1, I will applaud Hub Arkish for sticking to his guns and still being the only one.
Yeah, well,
that would be
I think he has to stick to his guns now, man. I mean, I think he's got to be at least the guy starting that crusade. But
you would think, like, if it's close, they're going to be questioning, well, did the people who didn't vote for him for the same reason or not vote for him for the same reason that Hub Arkish did? So it just, I don't know, it's not going to go away until, if he wins, it'll go away, because then it didn't matter. But if he doesn't win, it's not going to go away.
Well, here's the interesting thing now. Just looking forward here is we're wrapping up. So we have the Packers playing a meaningless game in Detroit. I really can't remember the last time the Packers played a meaningless game at this stage, with knowing that they're Super Bowl contenders. It's kind of weird to be going into this. And one of the reasons I say this is because we're always so locked in every week. And the process, the further we get into the NFL with a good team or a great team like the Packers, you anticipate so much. It becomes part of your schedule, part of your routine. Yeah. Now, Sunday, they play a noon game, which it almost seems like is rare these days. It's early. Yeah. You can't plan a party at noon, per se. At least I don't. I always wait till 12:30 to have my first drink. But anyway, just kidding. So you got a noon meaningless game, and then they're off the following week because they get the bye. So if you think about this, we're sitting at January 7th today doing this. They're not going to play a meaningful game again until the weekend of the 22nd, 23rd. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Will you still be tuned in? Will you still be watching the playoffs? Are you going to tune in especially to the NFC teams and results to see what happens and who they're going to host?
I mean, that's what I'll be looking to do. Just because I think once the playoffs come, it just playoff football. It's just like basketball. It's just better than regular season. You just know it matters more, and there's more excitement. Other than that, I guess I'm just waiting to see, like you said, because I would assume this weekend you're not going to get more than 2 quarters out of them, if that. And even those 2 quarters might be played safe, just to kind of keep them moving and going through the motions. But it's hopefully we'll see a good share of it, like AJ Dillon or something to kind of tide us over and give us something to focus on and be excited for, because I don't think it's going to come from Aaron. And it shouldn't. They've earned the rest. You just got to make sure that the rest doesn't become rust.
Well, you know what I'd like to see? My parting thought is going to be this. I would really like to see Jordan Love finish up strong, because he's going to get some playing time at some point on Sunday. We all understand. He may get the start and play the whole game. But I know one thing. Detroit is going to be as hungry as any team, maybe one of the hungriest teams to win a game, because it's been such a god-awful season for them. Yeah. And it's been a strange season for them, and it's a home game for them, and they know they're playing the Packers. So I would really like to see Jordan Love get his opportunity and cash in on it. And because you know what, here's the other strange thing, and knock on wood on this. I mean, you just don't know, what's going to happen in the postseason, where maybe he's got to be at the ready for, a play series or 2 or something like that. God forbid. But I mean, I think this is for anybody else on this roster. There's only one guy that this game's really important for. And it could be,
Yeah, and obviously we've got some uncertainty once the season ends with kind of with Aaron and Devontae. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely an opportunity for him to get another 2 quarters at least into an NFL game. So, hopefully it turns out well.
All right, brother. Anything else on your agenda? I'm good on my end.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. I think I'm just ready for this Bucs game tonight and see what happens, see who's playing. It'll be good to see him go up against the Nets, and I think depending on who is and who is out, who's in and who's out, you got to set your expectations at that. But either way, Bucs Nets tonight is what I'll be watching.
All right, sounds good. Have a good weekend, pal.
You too.
Have a good week.